Chapter 5, The Old Quarry. Hello, I'm Rosie Boom. Welcome back to Riverwood Cabin, and I'm reading from Where Lions Roar at Night, Chapter 5, The Old Quarry. The holidays raced past. The children spent many happy hours down at the river in the heat of the afternoons. The boys discovered a great spot for a tree hut and made regular trips down to the river laden with hammers and saws and wood. The meadow rang with the sound of hammering. They found some long pieces of rope in Dad's workshop and hung 4 rope swings from an old tarairi tree in Cair Paravel. Then Dad came down and helped them set up a swing from a huge old pine tree. It swung out over a bank and above the river. Dad tied a smooth, strong stick in the end of the rope for a seat. Soon they were all lining up for turns. Jacob held the stick in his hands and then ran along the bank before swinging out and flying through the air in a full circle and landing back on his feet on the bank. "You look like Peter Pan!" cried Millie. "Here, give me a go." She grabbed the swing from Jake and flew through the air in a circle. "That is so cool!" she exclaimed when she re-landed. "May I have a go?" asked Sam. Dad handed him the rope. "Sure, just make sure you hold on tight." Sam ran along the bank and launched off. He flew through the air, and then suddenly his hand slipped and he tumbled onto the ground. Millie watched him roll toward the bank of the river and disappear over the edge. Splash! They all ran down to see him getting on his feet in the river. Water dripped from his hair and his clothes and his nose. Millie tried not to laugh, but she couldn't help it. "Why did you let go?" she chortled. Sam wiped some water from his eyes. "My hand slipped." Dad reached down and helped haul him up the bank. "Are you hurt?" Sam shook his head. "Just wet," he answered, and Millie and Jake looked at each other and laughed. With the daily stint of pick-up sticks, the meadow began to look green and beautiful. The piles of wood around the property grew larger every day. "Oh, we'll have some cracker bonfires soon," said Dad. "We'll light them in autumn, I think." Autumn seemed like ages away to Millie. She couldn't wait to light the fires. But at the same time, she wasn't looking forward to saying goodbye to summer or starting school. "We're getting really civilised," said Dad one morning at breakfast. "Power, telephone, running water. Once we get our homeward stove and the wet back in, we'll be all set." The day before, he had finished putting in a large stainless steel sink and some shelving. "What about our dishwasher?" asked Josiah. "When are you going to put that in?" "I've got 6 dishwashers. What do I need another one for?" 6 groans erupted around the table. Dad ignored them. "What say we do our stint of pick-up sticks early and then head out to the lake for a swim?" That cheered everyone up. The lake was an old quarry with very deep water and high cliffs to jump and dive off. Mum always felt a bit nervous there and spent most of the time watching to make sure each person surfaced after their bomb or dive and doing head counts. "Let's have a diving competition," Millie suggested as soon as they arrived. "You be the judge, Mum. Give us a score out of 10. That was a hard call. They each did their showiest dives, and Mum was hard-pressed to pick a winner. Finally, she got sick of watching. "Stand aside, everybody, and I will demonstrate to you a perfect 10. Dad whistled cheekily. Mum balanced on the edge of the rock, arms spread wide. She rose onto her toes, paused for effect, and then sprung into the air. It was destined to be a beauty. At that moment, Dad yelled, "Your glasses!" Mum jerked up her head, grabbing frantically at her face. She hit the water with a resounding smack. Dad let out a long, low whistle. "Look at my legs!" wailed Mum when she climbed out. They glowed bright red. "Well, I sure couldn't call them whitebait anymore," said Dad. Mum grimaced at him and then brandished her right hand, in which she clutched her expensive prescription sunglasses. "Painful, but I saved my glasses." "Just as well," chuckled Dad under his breath. "That would have been your third pair." "A perfect 10, Mum," laughed Millie. "The perfect belly flop. Will you teach us how to do it?" "Not today. I think I'll get back in the water and cool my legs off." "Watch us then, Mummy," said Sam. He dived in and began swimming over to the far side of the quarry with Ellie, Josiah and Dad. Mum and Millie paddled out into the middle of the lake on a large inner tube and settled down to watch the show. "Be careful," called Mum. Josiah went first. He did one of his famous swallow dives and hung in the air for what seemed like ages. "Beautiful," called Mum when he surfaced. Sam went next. He'd been swimming since he was 4 and could dive like a dolphin. "Bravo!" shouted Mum. "Are you ready?" called Ellie. Mum gave her the thumbs up and Ellie did a beautiful deep dive with only the tiniest splash. "That was a 10, yelled Mum. Dad launched into the air next, then rolled just before the water and made a huge splash. Mum clapped enthusiastically. "Heifer-lump, you just about emptied the lake." Josiah, Katie and Millie climbed up high and did a jump all together. They hit the water at almost the same time and made a huge splash. "Watch me again, Mum," called Sam as he began to climb up the rock face. He had almost reached the top when his foot slipped. He grabbed at a rock. It gave way and tumbled down the cliff into the water. Millie watched in horror as Sam began to slide back down the sharp rock face. Mum gave a little cry and dived into the water. She began swimming frantically towards him. Millie dived in after her. Sam fell into the water without a sound. Ellie reached him first. She cradled him in the water and looked around desperately for Mum, who reached them moments later, breathing hard. Sam threw his arms around her neck. "Oh, darling," Mum gasped breathlessly. "Thank God, your face is all right." "My leg stings," cried Sam. Mum glanced down at his leg and Millie saw a pained look race across her face. "Let's get you back to the other side first, Sam. Hold on to the tire and Dad and I will swim you over." It seemed like a long way across the lake. "It stings," cried Sam again and again. At last they reached the bank. Dad lifted Sam out and set him on a flat rock. The family crowded around to look. His arms and legs were scraped all over. Millie's stomach churned when she saw the deep, wide gash on his left leg. She looked away. Mum quickly hid it from Sam with a towel and spoke in her matter-of-fact nurse's voice. "It's going to need stitches, darling. I'm sorry." She gave a sad smile to Ellie, who was searching her face with big eyes. "I don't want stitches," whimpered Sam. "I know, darling. but you're going to have to be brave." She wrapped his leg in a clean towel, and then Dad picked him up and carried him the long way back to the car. "I think I'll treat it myself," Mum told Dad on the way home. "It's a clean cut, and he's just had his tetanus injection. If I can use steri strips, it'll save Sam having to have injections and stitches." "I don't want stitches," said Sam again. Mum stroked his hair. "I know, darling. I'll have a go at steri stripping it, but if the cut doesn't come together well enough, you'll have to go to hospital." Sam cried quietly. The van was unusually silent. Millie shuddered at the thought of hospital. They'd been there just a few months ago. She and Jake and Sam had been playing knights, and somehow the broom they'd been using as a lance had hit Sam on the forehead. She had just about fainted when she saw the blood streaming from the deep cut. Poor old Sam had needed to go to the hospital that time. She hoped he wouldn't now. When they got home, Sam lay on the couch and Mum cleaned the wound. It was about 4 centimetres long. Dad got the camera and took a few photos. "Oh, you'll have a great scar you can show off later, Sam." "I've got too many scars," said Sam, as Mum dried the wound carefully and then put on the first steri strip. Mum smiled down at him. "I think it'll be fine. It's coming together nicely." Ellie cut the strips to the right length and passed them to Mum. Mum smiled at her. "You'd make a great nurse, Ellie." Ellie pulled a face. Mum never missed an opportunity. She was determined to get at least one doctor or nurse from her brood. At last, Mum straightened up. "Perfect, even if I say so myself." She gave Sam a big hug. "What a brave boy you are. You well and truly deserve 10 out of 10 for courage. Now let's see, what can I give you for a prize?"